You guys remember the DS and 3DS line of handhelds from Nintendo, right? Nothing has really scratched that nostalgic itch for me. I've had a few instances where I can play a game on a retro handheld and it feels pretty solid, but the experience just isn't the same. At least it wasn't until I tried playing those games on the AYN Thor. We finally hit a point where emulating from those platforms isn't horrible anymore. I've been able to play games on the AYN Thor from 3DS as well as the DS line just fine for the past few weeks. There are a couple of instances with Wii U titles where there are hiccups, but the beauty in this handheld isn't just that it can play from these platforms, but everything else that you can do with it too. I've always been a fan of AYN and how they handle their handhelds. Their sleek designs, their fair pricing, and overall approachability make them an easy contender in the world of retro handhelds. This thing comes with Android, and Android is a Swiss Army knife of apps that are readily available for you. But when you add the use of both of these screens, all sorts of things open up. Want to play 3DS and Wii U games the way that they were meant to be played? Check. Want to go ahead and play retro titles that are so obtuse that you need a guide handy for you on the bottom screen? Done. You want to watch Netflix while you hunt for shinies and Pokemon? The world is your cloister. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't been paying too much attention to what's been happening in the Android space as of late, and I've missed out on a lot. There are some things that I didn't even realize Android could do until I started looking into the different devices and capabilities that are out there, especially with this device in particular. And some of them have genuinely surprised me. Now, I'm still learning, but if there is something that I did not mention in this video, let me know down in the comments below because I want to learn more. A lot of this is thanks to the processor that is inside though, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. The model that AYN sent me is the Pro model with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of onboard storage. The chip that it comes with has been proven time and time again through testing that there's so much bang for your buck here. I'll talk a little bit more about the performance when we cover games across platforms, but for now let's talk about not only the cost, but also what it comes with and how it feels. The cost of the unit they sent me is $349 at the time of filming, but they have others that are readily available. They range anywhere from $249 to $429, and looking at the specs, I feel like the base or Pro model are the way to go, but it really just depends on what you want and your overall budget on things. Now, when I went to unbox the package that AYN sent me, I saw two different boxes that were there. One was for the unit itself, and then the other one was for this grip. And I am so happy that they actually sent this to me, guys. I have big hands, and playing on a handheld, like having big hands and then having a grip, it feels so much better. Now, I understand that this needs to be flat because of the design choice that's there. It's a clamshell and it's gray and all, but just having the grips makes it a much more enjoyable experience. Comfort-wise, it's not really that great for me personally, but I think that this is a byproduct of the design that's there. I mean, it's tapping into the DS and 3DS design that's there, and this is for better or worse. The 3DS came out over 14 years ago, so yeah, at that point, I think I had a little bit more hair on my head, or at least I thought I did, and the way that I played games was vastly different. I didn't really care about the ergonomics of handhelds or how they felt at the time. I just wanted to play games whenever I could. And although I still feel that way, I still try to play games whenever I can, especially, as a dad and a family man, I still want to make sure that I have an enjoyable experience when I'm playing on these handhelds, and this falls short in some areas. The D-pad feels okay, but I think that the biggest fault with the D-pad is its positioning. And this isn't really, at fault with the design of the D-pad. It's just the way that the handheld is designed. AYN has come out with phenomenal D-pads with placements like the Odin 2 Mini, for instance. But if you are playing a 2D side scroller though, it's not going to feel great on this handheld. You're going to want to map that to the actual joystick or the analog stick that's there. Now, thankfully, AYN did send that grip, and it does make it a little bit more enjoyable in terms of using the D-pad that's there. But again, this really just depends on your own personal experience in terms of the ergonomics that are there. I will say though that if you are going to be traveling with this in your pocket, I don't recommend that you take this grip with you, because at that point it's going to be almost too big for it to be considered something that would be a mobile, portable handheld. At that point, it's just going to feel a little off and it's going to feel almost too big. Location-wise, the rest of the buttons feel fine where they are. The right joystick sometimes feels a ways away when you want to go and reach for it, and the analog sticks are both Hall sensors, so you don't have to worry about stick drift. But there's a shift in quality when it comes to the actual buttons themselves that I don't understand. The face buttons feel phenomenal, but the triggers and the AYN button that's there at the bottom of the second screen, they both feel very fragile, especially the AYN button. Like, I can almost break it if I push a little bit too hard on it, and I don't want that to happen. One thing that I can say is that this thing is prone to actually getting fingerprints and dust on it, and that is definitely because of how glossy the front of the handheld is when I open it up. I don't really like this trend of glossy, panels that are there, like having like a full glass front. It's just, it doesn't look good. It causes a ton of reflections, and like I said, fingerprint magnet city. I would recommend always having a microfiber cloth of some kind nearby to take with you on this, and since it's got a little bit of gap when it's closed, you're more than likely to find some form of dust or dirt in there. I kind of just wish that they had shipped this with a cloth, because you're gonna need it with how glossy everything is. The hinges are pretty good. The positions and everything that they locked into are fine. I don't think that you're going to get any sort of cracking or breaking on it anytime soon. And after using it for a while, I really don't have any complaints in terms of the hinged quality. The speakers are okay. They don't get too loud, and I wouldn't expect anything super crazy with this small form factor, though that doesn't take anything away with how much power is packed into this tiny thing. But I get it. There's a ton of tech that is packed inside into this form factor, and although I can feel cramped at times when I'm playing this thing is probably one of the most powerful mobile handhelds in the retro scene that I've seen in a while. And even more so if you consider the price point that is there. I really, truly love everything that comes with this thing. Thankfully, AYN has gone out of their way to give us some form of software to tweak and adjust things easily to our liking. Pushing down the AYN button brings up their software. And although there aren't a ton of things here, it's just enough to keep me satisfied. You can choose the focus mode and tell the system which screen you're actually playing on. You can tweak your controller profile, the LED lights on the joysticks, and trigger performance mode and a stronger fan speed when you need just enough bump in power. By the way, speaking of the fan speed, I would definitely make sure that you have that on sports mode the entire time. The smart mode isn't that good, and quiet mode definitely does affect and throttle the chip itself. Just use the sports mode. You're not going to need anything else aside from that. There is a floating icon on the right side of the top screen where you can actually toggle on and off different things. The only time I would actually recommend having that set up is when you're turning off the bottom screen entirely, and that way you still have access to, a couple of quick settings that are there. But I wouldn't even do that unless you're trying to save battery. Although I will say, like any other Android device though, you are going to have to find your own emulators and set them up accordingly. Nothing is set up aside from the AYN software that this thing comes with. But I kind of like it like that. You can always customize your experience and set up however you like. If you prefer Emulation Station or Daiji Show, it's really up to you and whatever you want this handheld to be. Or you can just keep on running Android and launch the apps that you want. AYN does have their own Odin launcher, which isn't the most beautiful launcher in the world, but it does the job and it does it really well. You can easily stick with this and just be set. All of your apps are accessible from both the top screen and the bottom screen, but because you have two different screens that are there, the screen that actually launches the game is going to be considered your primary screen. If you want to go ahead and have a guide on the bottom, then launch your browser of choice and use that to look it up. Just, you can have the top screen to play your game and the bottom screen for the guide itself. For games that require two screens, you're going to need to go and set up the emulator settings to make sure that you have everything set up so that your second screen can be shown on the bottom. And a lot of the apps that you get for running these games on here, they're still in alpha mode, so expect plenty of glitches and things like that, but I think that with age, everything will become better. Getting it just right will require some trial and error, but once it's up and running, it's actually pretty awesome. But there are some games that even with this setup struggle to run well. Now, don't get me wrong, the processor that is inside this handheld, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, it doesn't disappoint at all. Performance for everything from Famicom all the way to GameCube and PS2 can pretty much be seen as practically running flawless. You won't run into any issues on any of those platforms. I was playing Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, DS, 3DS, PS1, PS2, and so much more. Most of the time, all of those games ran beautifully and upscaled on top of that. 3DS and DS titles ran beautifully, but setting it up was just not the best. It wasn't a great experience. Each one of the emulators that I wanted to run on here had to be set up with its own proper and unique settings. Obviously, you'll lose out on a frame here and there when you're playing 3DS or DS, but overall, with everything being rendered the way that it is, it really wasn't that bad. With the Wii U, I did run into some hiccups here and there, but it was mainly with shader caching while the games were running. Once you were in an area for a little bit, they'll even out and you won't run into any issues. But with the high end of emulation being really limited by the apps that are available on Android, we're seeing peak emulation overall. One of the biggest surprises that I saw on here was that you can even emulate a PC environment, which is pretty awesome. And since you have an emulated Windows environment, guess what? You're able to play some PC games from Steam. There are various solutions out there, obviously, but the option that I wanted to try was GameHub. And this is mainly because there was recently a Play Store app that was released. This was super easy to set up, by the way. You just needed to download that app, sign into Steam, find your games, and download them. Now, I do have to say that heavier titles will have a tough time running smoothly on here, but overall, PC emulation on this thing rocks. So older titles should be able to run just fine. Modern titles should run fine as well, as long as they're lightweight. Also, I have found that if a game doesn't run the first time that you launch it on this thing, you're probably going to want to try either a second time or a third time, and it might just work. Just make sure to keep things on very low settings, because this thing isn't an NVIDIA GPU or anything in your hands. But even though you can download games and have them running natively on here, doesn't mean that you're going to have some magical experience. And I just want to throw that out there, that sometimes you will run into hiccups when playing PC games on here. While I was running PC games, I did notice that the deep OLED blacks on the screen are absolutely beautiful, especially when I was playing games like Hollow Knight Silksong from my Steam library. While testing things out on this screen, I did notice one of the biggest issues in the handheld gaming space, and that's battery life. I'm super pleased to report that this battery is absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. While on idle, the standby, I'm talking about a 12-hour, actually, well, it was really more a 13-hour span. There was only a 1% drop with this thing being closed overnight. I did notice some lag while I was playing 3DS titles at a higher internal resolution, but this can be fixed by just lowering the internal resolution that's there. Even still, there is going to be some form of lag here and there, especially when I compare it to the original hardware, but overall, it is what it is. It did become more apparent when I started looking at two different screens that were there. Both of these are AMOLED, which have their own pros and cons, but like most OLED screens, there's going to be PWM flickering to consider. What is PWM?
And PWM stands for, obviously, pregnant with monkeys.
No, this doesn't mean pregnant with monkeys, though see a doctor if you are. It stands for pulse width modulation, and I'm not going to go super in depth in terms of what it exactly means. Just know that it's essentially turning things on and off at a rapid pace. If you want to know exactly what happens in depth, then pause right here. The PWM on this handheld is bad. While I was messing with things, I decided to record how it came out. This is footage at 240 frames per second, and this is footage at 30 frames per second so that you can see how it looks more or less. As you can see, it's super apparent. And even on the lower screen, I noticed that there was a huge delay when scrolling through pages on a GitHub, almost like there was a form of screen tearing that was there. It didn't look good. And it's a shame because there are some use case scenarios for a handheld like this. I do understand though that Android has never really had a good time with 120 hertz running on one screen and 60 hertz running on another. So honestly, I'd rather just keep 60 hertz across the board unless you really want to go ahead and have 120 hertz. And for that, I would, consider doing some black frame insertion, or if you're streaming from like a local PC and you want to have that there, like Moonlight or even NVIDIA's GeForce Now, things like that, where you're streaming onto the handheld is a completely different story. But for the most part, you're not going to need 120 hertz. But if you're not super sensitive to this stuff, then you should be able to have an awesome experience on this handheld regardless. And for the price, I mean, you really just can't beat it. Add that you can play PC indies and older titles on here, and I can't see who wouldn't want to have something like this as their main Android handheld. But with all its flaws, there's one thing that really makes this handheld stand above the rest, and it's the fact that there is so much power packed into this tiny form factor. You can play most, if not all, of your retro library here, and then some. And if you want to go ahead and play PC titles as well, you can do that too. Its price point is right where you want it to be, and despite it not being 100% the most comfortable handheld for someone with larger hands, it still feels right at home. It oozes with nostalgia, and it's a very portable handheld. The last handheld that I reviewed on this channel was the RG557, and it was a solid experience despite its definitely obvious PWM issues, but something was missing in its form factor that made me want to reach for other handhelds when I wanted to play my retro games. If you're looking into getting one of these, then just do it. You're gonna have to deal with a little bit of setup, obviously, but it's not a super long process. Just once it's up and running, it's going to be a great experience for you. This honestly might be my new favorite way of playing retro games right now. It's super pocketable, the battery life is fantastic, and I can play even more games. I can play brand new indie lightweight titles. Like what? I can play games from Steam on this thing, and it freaking blows my mind. If this is something that you're interested in, just go buy it. Get out of here. You won't be disappointed. Anyways, guys, thanks for your time. YouTube thinks that you should watch this video, so maybe you should click it and see if it's right. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.